Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Bambi 2. This is called just Bambi 2 on Disney Plus. It's actually, the full title is Bambi 2, The Great Prince of the Forest. I imagine that title might have been a little bit spoilerish, but this is from 2006. It's an hour and 17 minutes long, and this has the distinction of being, if not just for Disney films, but for maybe all films in general, it has the record for the biggest period of time between the original and the sequel. So the original came out in 1942. This is 2006. That's 64 years between films. Now, was this sequel necessary? Absolutely not. This is definitely in the pile of early 2000s direct-to-video sequels that Disney put out, basically to keep their animation wing. This is keep their animation wing moving, I guess. It's I think it's at the time it was after the Renaissance, with the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and everything else, and Pixar was definitely moving into position as being sort of the more official animation house as compared at Disney. But this is before Disney Animation, of course, blew up again with things like Frozen and Big Hero 6 and a bunch of other things, obviously, that we all know, Wreck-It Ralph, and things like that eventually solidified its base with the help of the people at Pixar, and making itself its own big, profitable a animation house once again. So the Disney animation wing has always been kind of up and down. If you look at a lot of the documentaries on here, there's more than one talking about how animation, yeah, it was the bread and butter of Disney Studios for a while, but there was times when it was no longer at the forefront. It was no longer the era like the Black Cauldron and everything else. Whether the movies were good or not, it was just really not holding its own, and it kind of pushed back on keeping it afloat in some cases until a big hit would come along. Well, in this case, Disney was putting its resources into the Disney Toon Studios and putting out things like this. I mean, sequels to Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, Little Mermaid, and they went all the way back to Bambi. And yeah, like I said, was this absolutely necessary? No, it wasn't. But is it good? Surprisingly, yes. Now, this doesn't have I think, it doesn't have the issue of trying to maintain the same quality of animation as you had in 1942, because you're not going to do that. And again, quality is subjective because, again, they didn't have the technology of today, of 2006 at least, to create Bambi in 1942. But that's kind of its charm. We have ways of shortcutting the things that they did in 1942 to make it look like it would have been a film in 1942. But did we want something that looked exactly like 1942, with all of its rough edges, and as beautiful as the animation was? And it's two different realms of animation at this point, and you're never going to recapture that original thing, and in many cases you don't want to. The original Bambi is the original Bambi. You don't want to remake it exactly, of course, animation or story wise. In this situation, we have a story of Bambi that takes place obviously right after the original, but 64 years in our time. Bambi's lost. Bambi's without his mother. As we all know, that's how it ends, for the most part, or that's how he's left. But I was among many people who didn't realize that his father was still alive. I think the impression was that he was killed, and I didn't go back and watch the original one just to make sure. Maybe it's just a father who just hey, the great prince of the forest, the daddy buck, does not stick around. He just sort of plants his seed wherever he goes, and the does are responsible for raising the next generation. That's kind of how the animal world works in many ways, in many cases. there's not exactly a nuclear family that's created out in the forest. There's too much danger in that, I think. But in this case, the Great Prince of the Forest steps in, and it is he's got a big rack. He's big buck. He's probably the prize buck for any hunter that's out there. Man, as is the villains once again, but we never see any man. I don't think we saw any man in the original either, but their presence is known obviously through hunting dogs and the sound of gunfire. This the Great Prince, he kind of watches over all the others at a distance from above, usually on a high precipice, looking down upon the does and the fawns and everything else, just going about their day, feeding and frolicking, and he stands above them, all regal. Well, he's about to get a lesson in fatherhood, in the sense of Bambi gets introduced to him real quick, and he's just like, well, we're gonna have to find you a new mom. We're gonna have to find, and it's winter. There's really not going to be a chance to just, everybody's kind of hiding away. There's not a chance, easy chance of them finding a new mother to take care of him. The owl, Mr. Owl, kind of informs the Great Prince of this. And so the Great Prince begrudgingly decides he's going to take care of his own son, at least until spring. He is distant, he's cold, he is very matter of fact, and he kind of doesn't take any crap. And he's voiced by none other than Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, Professor X, and a number of other roles, but you know him from those roles most of all. But this is by the way Patrick Stewart doing his best American accent with his regal intonation. Okay, you get a little bit of British in there, you get a little bit of English, but it's still definitely, you can tell that it's Patrick Stewart doing American accent. It's subtle. I don't know if it's subtle, but it's it's not harsh. It's not like, I sound really awkward speaking American. He's still regal because that's his voice. His pipes are pretty much, he's make it so. He's very much still Patrick Stewart, but he plays a dad to a rambunctious little Bambi, who along with his friends who help him get in trouble, does his best to take care of Bambi, and finds that he likes him along the way. Of course, I mean, yes, I'm spoiling that, but that's what the struggle is going to be. It's about Bambi finding a parental figure, and that parental figure wanting to be a parent to Bambi. So it's that struggle. Bambi wants so much to impress his father, and wants his love and acceptance because he is alone in the world. Besides all of his wonderful friends, Thumper and Flower, and all of Thumper's sisters are involved as well. They're always giggling and causing trouble with Thumper. He's also has a rival fawn, or is it a fawn if it's a boy? I don't know. A little kid deer, named Ramo, I think, or Rano. Yeah. He's kind of a jerk. He's already got his little antlers coming in already, and he thinks he's a big deal, trying to pull the attention of Faline away from, yes, Faline's here as well. So this movie does kind of act as therapy for the last film. It does act as it gives a lot of closure to the story of Bambi. I think. Oh, gosh, I wish I should have watched the end of Bambi before I recorded this, because I kind of remember a story. I can't remember you see Bambi as a buck at the very end, like the last scene, isn't it? Is it just something I've made up in my head? I don't know. But you get to see that story of how he became that far. He's awkward, he's silly, he's adorable. If you love you and kids, any kids in your family, when I'm saying you, I mean you're an adult, and I can't imagine kids be watching me to find out what to watch on Disney Plus because that's just not a thing that happens. Um, this is absolutely sweet. It's not traumatic, like many people consider the original Bambi to be. It is sweet. It's cute. It's fun. The animation is great. It's I mean for its time for 2006, it doesn't try to cram in some 3D animation. At least not in a way it that it looks obvious. If there is, I didn't notice it. Um, but it's smooth. The characters are well animated. It's just, it looks really good. I mean, this looks really good, and this is the acting is great. The Thumper and Flower and everybody else is adorable. You get to hear familiar lines and words like Twitter pated and things like that. The humor is appropriate. The cuteness is off the charts, and especially with Thumper's little sisters constantly bugging him and him trying to act like a big deal. They run across other animals in the forest, like a porcupine and groundhog. This would be a Groundhog Day movie technically. Doesn't have that Bill Murray Groundhog Day aspect, but it does take place in it does take place with a groundhog waiting to see its shadow. So I imagine this is a February 2nd kind of movie, and technically this means Bambi takes place in Pennsylvania, in Puxatawny. Yeah, outside Pittsburgh, that area out there. Yeah. So, so Pennsylvania is technically the land of Bambi. That's neat to be able to be confirmed. Um, the music in this is good. It fits the tone. I think they're really reaching for a sort of country music loving audience. I think Martina McBride performs one of the songs. The director, who is Brian Pimental, hopefully I pronounced that right, he provides some of the music too. He also is the voice of one of the characters. I can't remember which, and I'm not going to scroll through all of them to find out. But yeah, it's definitely going to be pointing towards a more rural American audience. That's kind of what it's leaning towards. But it makes the man with the gun the bad guy, which is kind of weird, you know. But you don't see any man. Probably the scariest stuff you're going to find in this is dogs chasing Bambi, and Bambi doing his best to fight them off. And it's a matter of he's trying to prove himself to his dad, trying to show that he's brave, trying to show that he's strong. He knows how to jump. He's good at jumping, but is he brave enough to fend off the most fearsome creatures that he comes across, whether it's the ones sent by man or just the average animals in the forest? He's a deer. He's a little cute little deer, and when you hear him roar, it ain't terrifying at all. So I think this is a great little story about fathers and sons, fathers and children in general, and I think it's a sweet movie, and it's well done, and it ends, of course, in a happy note. So it's the kind of thing that I almost think that it was meant to launch a little bit of a series, because there's still a little bit of rivalry between Bambi and Rano. That you think that this Rano kid is going to show up again, and it could have launched into a series of a little TV series on Disney Channel or something. But yeah, I mean, they'd have to recast it now if they did it, because it's all the kids are all grown up as adults. But God knows, I think they're doing a live action Bambi remake, with the 3D animation, with live whatever else. So yeah, it's kind of do it like they do with Jungle Book or Lion King, things like that. They have to redo everything. They're doing Snow White, so yeah, they're doing Bambi as well. So watch for that. So catch this before it gets hidden away at some point when the new one comes in. It is what they do. They rotate stuff in and out all the time. It's really strange. Anyway, I recommend this, and I did not expect to. I didn't think this was going to be good. I thought it was just going to be a cash in, quick and dirty. Here's a movie. It's cute. Blah. But Patrick Stewart elevates it because he's just great, and you also just get tons of cutesy animals. Even again, if you don't care about the story whatsoever, the kids in your family, that you just sit in front of that, put them in front of this TV, they are gonna love the interactions between Thumper and Flower and Bambi and all the rest in these things. And it doesn't slow down the story. It's like you could watch that their playfulness and their giggles. It's like watching actual toddlers just be themselves and be silly and cute. So yeah, take it for what it is. If that's what you kind of enjoy, you can watch that. So let's pick tomorrow's episode.
612.
Ugh. 612. What do we got here? 612. Okay. Oh, okay. It's a series. I think it's like a reality series, sort of. This one confuses me. I think we've seen the shorts for this, but I can't be sure. I can't remember. 612 on this list. Oh, we just missed Wall-E. We're in the W's. I would have loved to see Wall-E. I haven't seen that in a long time. But hey, we'll get to it eventually. But we're going to be watching Walk the Prank. Walk the Prank. Basically, I think it's Disney Channel stars being jerks to each other, but making it look like it's a surprise. Who knows? You know what? That's a review or a discussion we'll have tomorrow on the Disney Plus Everyday channel. Walk the Prank on the Disney Plus Everyday channel. See you then.